Hi, future Jess here. I wanted to announce that our Patreon is up and live. We appreciate you all so much for the support that you've shown us. If you choose to also support us through Patreon, we can guarantee that everything we receive will go back toward the show. You can find us by going to patreon.com/Dungeons Dopamine, or you can find the link on any of our social medias. Thank you so much. We love you. Ba-da-da-da-da-da. Dungeons and Dopamine. Ta-da! Hi, this is Dungeons and Dopamine. I'm Jess.
And I'm Brie.
And we already did this intro.
And it was beautiful.
And horrible.
Because we laughed the whole time, so it's not usable.
If you do our $7 or above level in Patreon, you can hear it.
Because hopefully by the end of today, we will have our Patreon open.
It'd be amazing.
Because Spotify is changing how they allow people to make money.
Which, as we grow, will be so great, but currently is not great.
Correct.
And we don't like anti-greatness.
Exactly.
I almost kept it straight through that whole
We're boycotting by having a Patreon. We're not even boycotting.
We love you, Spotify. We love you.
Let's do another ad. All the ads.
Best Spotify ever. Mm-hmm. All the Spotify all the time.
For podcasters.
Look.
Absolutely.
I don't know when I became a slogan-y, catchphrasey type of person, but I am now. And it's look and absolutely.
You probably always have been. If we look back through, we could do a whole episode where we just look back through our old notebooks. Probably have to be like a Patreon.
I think it should be a video. A video for a Patreon
it's just us
level.
Crying, laughing. But I feel like we had a lot of catchphrases back then too.
Yeah, I'm sure. Now I feel like we have to do this. Like we're I haven't changed my page.
We could do a whole episode of just inside jokes.
People
Jessica
will love that.
And Brienne used to think we're funny.
Sorry.
Like Harvey the Elk and
I apparently in high school at some point signed a scrap of paper and ripped it off and I handed it to Ryan and said, "Keep this, I'll be famous someday." He kept it.
Aww,
he might still have it somewhere.
He does. I'm sure of it. He looks at it every day.
Keeps it in his wallet, like Luke kept Lorelai's thing of predicting the future. Horoscope.
I forgot about that. I should rewatch that show.
You should. Oh, we could do a Patreon level of that.
Just a bunch of live streams of us watching things we like.
And reading through our old notebooks.
Gilmore Girls and Lord of the Rings. And did I tell you my dad gave me a book called Board of the Rings?
I think you did.
Like a
parody?
1970s parody of Lord of the Rings. Just gonna bring it and start reading that on
Perfect.
Popcasts.
On the Popcast.
We are changing how podcasts are done and making them podcasts.
Popcast. It sounds peppier.
It does.
Popcast.
Pop.
I like that it has a lot of
I understand.
I knew you would.
Very stable, loud.
It's satisfying when it comes
letters.
out of my mouth. Mm-hmm. Popcast.
I have to say this now because I feel like maybe you'll understand. I really like my name because it has double letters in it. It has two N's.
Yep.
And I feel like that stabilizes it. So when we had Connor, Zach actually picked his name or suggested his name, but I definitely went with it because it has the double N's.
Letters. Absolutely.
And I
didn't
was
do that on purpose.
Sad to give up my maiden name because I had the 2 B's.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're not double anymore. You guys could add a letter to Fagin.
I feel like it would change the pronunciation of it.
Fagin.
For some reason, I thought you were going to go with the G.
Or Fagin.
Fagin? Fagan?
That sounds actually a little more Irish.
True. Maybe that's what it was originally.
Yeah. Ryan's last name was... My last name was originally Vavzhinyek.
Wow.
And so when he's describing it to someone, he somehow thinks it makes more sense to say, oh no, it makes more sense in Polish, Vavzhinyek.
Sure. Maybe if we were in Poland, or talking to people that understood Polish.
Or understood spelling our name even. Like, most people, if you spell our last name for whatever reason you needed to spell our last name for, they've lost it as soon as they were done.
Oh, yeah.
So they don't care that it makes sense that it's Vavzhinyek.
I love your husband.
I'm dealing.
Kind of indifferent some days, but you know.
No, I like him. I'm keeping him around.
You better.
Stay. Yeah, right. He does our tech stuff.
Mm-hmm. So you're stuck with him now.
You told him he has no permission to die.
Zach and Connor both, for some reason, every time I clear my throat, which is not that infrequently because I have allergies and things, both of them will just stop and be like, both of them will be like, what? I was just clear. I wasn't trying to get your attention or comment on what you were doing. I just had to clear my throat.
Have you ever seen those TikToks where a wife will use her husband's full name? Like if his name is Richard and they call him Rich. She'll say, Richard, did you take the garbage out? Or she'll say like, hey, Richard. And these men are like, what? Why did you say that like that?
Yep. Zach would too.
Ryan.
Actually, I get confused when Zach uses my name because typically it's some version of some sort of pet name, like honey, sweetie, baby, wifey, something. So when he calls me Brienne,
you're like suspicious.
What's wrong?
I guess I kind of feel that way if Ryan uses Jessica, not Jess. Mm-hmm. But typically, he and I use our full names to get each other's attention. Because there's a lot of needing to get attention in this house.
Weird.
I've come to the conclusion that I know nothing. I was trying to think of a topic.
Nothing, Jess. Warzy. Doesn't fit.
No, too long. So I was trying to think of a topic that I could talk about that I didn't need to research. Nothing. I have nothing. My brain is empty.
I actually do not know anything about anything. Mm-mm. That's how I feel anytime I'm put on the spot. Like,
oh, sure. What's your favorite movie? Movies?
I don't like movies.
What are movies? I've never seen a movie.
Hate them. Will not watch them.
Do you like Lord of the Rings? Oh my gosh, that's probably my favorite movie.
Yeah. What's your favorite song? I don't know. Never heard
I've
a song.
never listened to music. Mm-hmm. I don't even own a radio. Actually, now your go-to answer should be da 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 Dungeons and Dopamine.
That last part is the most important.
Of course, yeah. So, I guess I know nothing, and now that we've established that, I shall share some dopamine. Did you know there are a lot of apparently haunted places in just the United States alone? For example, the Hollywood sign.
Which is crazy to me.
Yep. The Chicago Lincoln Park Zoo is haunted. And things like train stations and hotels.
Okay. I mean, so locally we have a lighthouse.
Yes.
That may or may not be haunted.
That would make sense to me. old places
Yeah.
make sense to me.
And train stations tend to be old.
Yeah. And a lot of, like, physical labor go into train station building and maintenance and stuff. So it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
So I was obviously researching this because I know nothing. And I learned these things. I learned about an airport that may or may not be haunted, but is more so the main character in some conspiracy theories.
Okay.
And that was good enough for me.
An airport. Okay.
So the Colorado Denver Airport.
Now, when you first said airport, I was expecting older or like a not often used like airfield. No. The Denver, I think I've
Denver
been there.
Airport. Oh, yeah?
Mhm.
So you might have seen some of what I'm about to talk about. So, I want to tell you some facts. Some fun facts about the Denver Airport. They started building it in 1989.
So again, not that old.
No, it's younger than us.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of weird to people because Denver already had a functioning airport. Some people say that it was just shrinking, so to speak, and it was just too small for what they needed. But it was just still really weird. They also chose to build this airport way off in the middle of nowhere in Denver, Colorado. So that was really suspicious.
Yeah.
When they were building it, it went $2 billion over budget.
2 billion?
Billion. Yes.
That.
Yep. 2 billion. And went 1 year over schedule. I think it was 16 months entirely. Like total. Over. It did open in 1995. It is the third busiest airport in the United States. It is the second largest airport in the world, only behind I'm not gonna be able to think of it. I don't have it in my notes, but it's 53 square miles sized. It's 53 square miles large.
Sure.
It big.
Yeah,
She big.
So it's like bigger than LA? Or
Yeah.
really?
Bigger than New York, bigger than LA, bigger than
Maybe
Yeah.
I haven't. I'm sure I have not been there then. Or it was only like a short layover.
yeah, like a
thing.
quick get to your it's so big that you have to travel a lot through like the train cars and stuff. Really weird.
It's crazy.
So, while it was being built, different contractors were hired for different areas of the airport. They've all been fired when their job was done. This makes people wonder if there's a strategy that they don't want everyone to know the full scope.
Feels like they're keeping secrets.
Secrets, yes. 110 million cubic yards of earth were moved to create like the area for this airport.
Okay.
Now I will say there are underground tunnels in this airport, which we are going to go over. But that's really still more dirt than should have been moved for the scale of a project. According to the internet, which is totally the truest.
I'm not an expert on how much dirt should be moved to build an airport.
I am, but I didn't do the math on this.
Just didn't have the time.
Yeah, I'm very busy doing podcasting stuff. 5,300 miles of fiber optics were installed for this, but the USA from coast to coast is 3,000 miles. Seems like a lot of fiber optics. It can almost go like back and forth.
Right.
From coast to coast. There is a fueling system that seems totally normal.
Right.
It can pump 1,000 gallons of jet fuel per minute, which is completely absurd even for an airport of this scale and size.
Because why would that be necessary?
Right. What would you...
Yeah.
That's all I got.
How are you going to fill the airplanes?
That's too fast.
Just trying to imagine the poor airport terminal guys trying to... It's like a air hose for the tires at the racetracks. He's gonna be like... It's full.
Done. Get out. Go and get.
They're just living so far in the future, we don't even understand.
It's incredible. They imported granite from all over the world to build this, even though it was already grossly over budget.
And why? Why would you want granite? Granite doesn't hold up well.
No.
It requires a lot of maintenance and stains and
Yeah.
can get worn
And you
away.
have to treat it. And yeah. So here we come back to the tunnel system. They constructed this huge tunnel system, and they're large enough that you can drive vehicles through them. And there is a luggage system that was millions of dollars and barely got used, that they claim is the reason for the tunnels, for luggage and stuff being transported. And a lot of these aren't used right now, according to the internet. I guess I'm gonna say that a lot because according to the internet,
we have not officially been there to check all this out. When we get big, we will go on site to test all these theories.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I would love that. There's some stuff I really want to see at this airport. So, starting outside of the airport, we're gonna move our way through the airport.
All right.
When you pull up to, it's a particular parking lot, a particular road. There is a 32-foot tall blue Mustang statue. Horse Mustang, not car Mustang.
That makes more sense, but still.
He's bucking, he's standing and bucking, and he has glowing red eyes.
What?
He's also anatomically correct, and being a Mustang, he's very veiny all over his body. His anatomically correct body.
Okay, if you're gonna make a horse statue and it's anatomically correct, but do you have to put all the details in?
Apparently, yes. The horse, he has a real name and I can't remember. I think it's literally just like Blue Mustang or something. Locals have nicknamed him Blucifer.
Fair enough. Very clever.
I had to read that several times without bursting out laughing to tell you the rest of the information about Blucifer.
Blucifer. Oh, it's raining.
He is made of fiberglass.
What?
Yep. And he murdered the artist. His head broke apart, and he severed an artery in the artist's leg, and he bled to death. His children finished the statue.
Is that why he has glowing red eyes?
So, his glowing red eyes are apparently dedication, I guess you'd say, to the artist's father, who used to work with neon lights. But
there are other colors.
So many colors. Blue would have looked great with the blue horse statue.
Blucifer should have had blue glowing eyes.
Or anything
Purple,
really.
green.
Purple? Yeah, green. White? I don't know, that might have been creepier. He would look like a White Walker.
Say black, and then I was like, no. Nope.
So, he's a rough guy. He is said to represent one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, which is death.
And he kills people.
He has murdered before. He has a taste for blood. And now, if you're flying in and you don't get to see Lucifer, you will still get a very interesting view, as some of the runways at Denver Airport form a very infamous and very icky hate symbol.
Really?
Yeah. They claim it's for, like, the safety of the airplanes. I'm not going to say a whole lot about it.
Yeah, nothing else they could have done that would have...
Hate symbol. Icky. When you get there, if you have to go to luggage claim, if you flew in, there are gargoyles that live in the baggage claim that were made by artists. One of the gargoyles looks like a devil jumping out of a suitcase. Now, gargoyles are supposed to be like a symbol of luck. So it's like wishing luck and safety over the passengers.
Sure. There are lots of other good luck symbols.
Really? Yeah. Like, 4-leaf clovers.
Yeah.
Or the Lucky Charms leprechaun.
Gargoyles, but I'm not sure I want them going through my luggage.
Yeah. It's very questionable. All of the art.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say that, because some of the art is fine. But we're not going to talk about any of that.
Because this isn't about that.
So, this next part is a very big part of this whole story.
This just keeps getting more astounding.
It's wild. So, there are 4 murals at the airport. They are something. The artist that did them said that they were meant to represent, like, peace and prosperity and goodwill, and the artists that they hired to do artwork for the Denver International Airport had some. They were something. The first of these murals that I'm going to talk about is very strange. It depicts children of different ethnicities from all over the world. They seem to be very upset and crying and running from a burning forest with what appears to be dead animals, some of them in, like, glass cases. They look like museum cases to me. On the bottom of the painting are 3 children, one each in their own coffin.
What?
Uh-huh.
How does this keep getting worse? Like, you're like, there's this painting, and it has all these children of different ethnicities from all over the world, and I'm like, yeah, Denver International Airport. That makes sense.
That sounds great.
This can't possibly take a turn like these other ones. No, it's weird.
It sure can. And then next to that one is a world of these children seemingly celebrating. Like, maybe the artist said that this was to depict that all times of bad famine, war, will all culminate to peace. I don't really understand. But
and if the artist has to be there to explain this to everybody, then maybe you're not getting the idea you intended.
Yes, I would agree with that. Now, personally, the one I hate the most shows a man in what appears to be an older style military garb. It might feel older style because he's wearing a gas mask. He's holding a gun. I don't know anything about guns, but it looks like one that fires really fast. And then he's also holding a giant sword in the other hand. And on the end of the sword is a dove that has been pierced by his sword. He is standing near crumbled ruins. There is a line of weeping people that kind of circle around behind him. And one of these weeping people is a mother holding her dead child.
No.
Sorry for the sniffles. And then there are children who look to maybe be asleep, or also they have a teddy bear, so I'm assuming they're asleep. However, the art is just terrifying enough for them to be also deceased. And they're just lying on the ground. And the one next to that is the soldier thing from the first image, dead on the ground. And a lot of people from all around the world celebrating with like swords, but the bundles of swords are wrapped with their culture's flags and stuff like that. So, that's that.
Yeah. I had to go ahead and look these up because I was sure you must just be explaining these wrong. But no, they are.
Did you see the one with the soldier? He's terrifying. He looks...
Oh my gosh. Yes, he is.
Like a World War II hate symbol carrying soldier.
Yep.
I don't know.
There is at least one dead baby.
Yeah.
On that picture. At least. The other ones are questionable.
Yeah.
And even the peace one.
Yeah. They're all very like brightly colored.
Yeah, like if I wasn't paying attention and I was walking through the airport, I'd probably just be like, "Oh, they had really beautiful, brightly colored art. That's great. Pretty flowers. There's some animals. There's like some cute monkeys in this one, and a weird little like earth tree." But yeah. So I saved all these photos of the art, and I had heard descriptions from other people, but I saved looking at them intently until this moment because I wanted to describe to you in my own words, kind of on cue. So many dead children.
Yes.
This one is hugging a squirrel, but it looks like he's being strangled by a squirrel.
It's terrifying. The whole art is...
This turtle is so sad wrapped up in a net.
And then I don't understand the animals in like glass. Someone explained them as glass coffins. I think they look like a museum display.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting from it. But maybe... I mean, and I guess if I had enough time... Gosh, is that a dead cheetah?
Yeah. It's like a snow leopard or something.
Yeah. If I had time and maybe some substances... I feel like I could get into like what the symbolism means and why they would have chosen. But why would you want that type of art in an airport?
Right. It's something.
Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of people claim that these murals are alluding to the apocalypse, and the people who will die and the people who will survive the apocalypse.
Lots of dead babies in that one.
Yeah. Yup. Now there's apparently a lot of hidden messages and hidden symbols in these paintings. I personally have not checked them. A lot of the pictures I found weren't amazing either. Like I got some clear images, but nothing really close up or anything. Right. I'm sure if I dove very deeply, which frightens me to be frank, I could.
Like it looks like there's writing on the glass cases that you mentioned.
Yes.
But
yep.
The ones I have aren't clear enough either to be able to see what it says.
One of the websites I looked at did point out a few of the things that these art features might be depicting. One is massive depopulation of the earth, death of Judeo-Christian beliefs, one world government, and restoration of nature. All of that just kind of gives me the heebies.
Yeah, like, those sound pretty extreme for...
Airport?
Yeah.
And people all over the world are seeing them. I mean, This is a hub. The third most busy airport in the U.S.
And rather political for a place that isn't.
Well, it's... The airport, to me, shouldn't have any of that. Your tensions are already high.
Right.
You're already
It should be,
stressing
like,
and...
flowers.
Furry animals.
Or, yeah. Those, like, motivational hang in there posters.
Yes, exactly.
Some Lisa Frank stickers. Something cheerful, not images to make us question our own humanity and the way that world is going. Oh, jeez.
So, yeah. There was a small period of time while the airport was doing some construction. Billions of dollars more construction, but whatever. They moved them and had them put away for a while. People were speculating why and wondering about it, but they came back after the construction. It would appear they just stored them for safety.
Makes sense.
There is a part of the airport where there is a kind of a slab of stone that has carved into it some information. Beneath that is a time capsule. I'm gonna tell you guys what the time capsules, or what the stone says above the time capsule. Denver International Airport. It has just kind of your normal, like, people's names and who donated and blah blah blah. It says the time capsule beneath this stone contains messages and memorabilia to the people in Colorado of 2094. We'll be dead when they open it. Then it says the most worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge F&M of Colorado and jurisdiction. Same on the other side, just a little different. Then it has the Freemason symbol.
Interesting.
And it gives credit to the New World Airport Commission, which doesn't exist.
New World.
Airport Commission.
In 1989.
Doesn't exist.
Right.
I'm sorry. This was 1994. I did lie. This must have happened after the airport was, like, built up and stuff.
That's even worse.
Yeah.
I mean, the 80s were crazy, you know?
So yeah, the New World Airport Commission isn't a thing. It doesn't exist. No one knows why it's on this stone. So, it's said that the capsule has, like, the mayor's shoes at the time and a credit card and just kind of silly, fun things.
Okay.
We won't know until 2094. But
set a reminder.
Yeah, exactly. So, with the marker, the symbols on there being the Freemason symbols, and maybe I don't understand the Freemasons a whole lot. One story that I heard said that it's just a prestigious old man frat club, which seems pretty apt.
So it's supposed to be like a secret society,
yes,
right?
And they have a ton of conspiracies around them.
Kind of like Illuminati based.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they already have mystery, and the symbols on it might not be directly Freemason symbols, but they are associated with them. So it's very strange that that would be on there. So we're kind of going down beneath into these tunnels that
I
talked
have
about
been waiting
earlier.
for the tunnels.
There's a worker who was building in the tunnels and claims that there are actually 5 buildings underneath the Denver airport. And that the stories that are around it say that these 5 buildings were built incorrectly and then buried instead of corrected or...
I mean, that would explain the billions of dollars.
Yes.
They spent $1 billion to build these 5 buildings, and they were like, these walls are wrong, guys. Just scrap it.
Bad.
We're starting over. Bring in the earth to bury these mistakes.
Yes.
We don't want to be reminded of them.
I mean, even Sarah Winchester did a better job of hiding the mistakes in her home. They should have asked her to do this. Not that she's been dead for hundreds of years.
It's fine.
It's fine.
They could have used a seance.
A lot of workers, besides this guy who claimed that there were 5 buildings buried under, they say that while they're working in the tunnels at any given time, there are a lot of extra exits and tunnels and things like that that are never used. So you'll be in a tunnel that is used, and there will be a weird door that goes somewhere, and you're not sure where.
And you ask about it, and they're like, Nothing?
Nothing.
We don't talk about that door.
We don't talk about that door. We don't talk about that door.
Thank you.
Now, the tunnels are huge, as I said. They're actually so big that they have people down there handing out tickets if someone doesn't drive by the law down there.
There's like a new deputy that gets assigned that starts on the police force, and they're like,
Go to
sorry,
the tunnels.
man, you got tunnel duty.
You gotta go to the cryptic, gross tunnels under the Denver
But don't
airport.
go down that door.
Don't touch Lucifer.
Don't go down that door.
He's out for blood.
You mess up, we're sending Lucifer after you.
Haunts your dreams. There are some theories that these tunnels lead to a government bunker that is there in case some big natural disaster happens in the world and they need to get government people and, scientists and things like that somewhere safe. So they're saying that there are like days worth of food in there and sustainable living quarters under there.
I bet the president has a whole suite.
Yeah.
Or a whole building.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then another theory is that these tunnels actually lead to a government site that is actually in Colorado. That one seems a little far-fetched because the tunnel would have to be enormous, massively long to get to this. I didn't work it out, but it was a lot of miles. There's also a couple theories like aliens, lizard people.
It always comes back to the lizard people.
Always. Psychological testing facility down below the airport, which seems like a terrible place to have stuff like you don't want crazies in your airport.
Right.
But
what if one of them broke through?
There are a lot of Freemason symbols around the airport in general, mixed in with some of the art and such. There's an inlay in the floor at one area that features AU and AG, and that is gold and silver. And that seems to make sense since it's Colorado and they have a really rich mining history. But some people think that it's a dangerous strain of hepatitis.
What?
That could serve as a biological weapon.
And they keep it in the floor, or they just salute it?
They think the
inlay
symbols
in the
represent the hepatitis.
Probably want to buy one of those doors we don't go down.
Yeah.
Where they
That's
keep
where they keep
all the
all of it.
hepatitis.
And they test it on the
and
lizard people.
The smallpox.
Yeah.
In cases. Just like the animals.
Yeah.
What if they're going to spread the hepatitis
Right.
with the animals that were in
Oh, kitty. I'm sorry.
cages?
So that's another thought, thinking that the airport itself could be a hub for biological warfare. Hence why it might lead to a government facility and why it might have this safety protocol bunkers, and it's really strange. Now, something kind of fun about the Denver airport is they lean into this so hard. They have, they put out billboards and one of the posters I really enjoy is coming soon, Denver airport, and it says, A, a secret portal to the underworld. B, streamlined security. C, another misunderstood mural. Learn the truth at denfiles.com.
That is amazing.
They also had one that had a cat in a tinfoil hat. They host a whole month-long event based on these conspiracies where they do like art projects. They have a museum set up in the airport in honor of all the conspiracy theories. I don't know if he's still there. I didn't quite understand, but I did see a lot of videos. They have a talking gargoyle who interacts with the guests.
Yes.
They are getting the most out of all of these conspiracy theories. You can argue that they're leaning in to hide it. You can argue that they're leaning in because they know it's ridiculous. And I watched a lot of interviews with people. If you watch interviews with, like, the common people like us, they all believe these conspiracy theories. They all, or at least they know of them. Now we do too. But a lot of the interviews with workers, they just kind of said, I don't know whether to believe it or not. The airport is so big that most workers won't see the entirety of the airport while they work there. And
which is crazy to me.
Yeah, it's really hard to say. Some of the evidence is very spooky. I mean, putting it together is very creepy, which is why I thought it was appropriate, even though I was doing more of like a haunty, creepy feel. This worked. It creeps me out.
I do not usually get into conspiracies. Okay, no. I love conspiracy theories. I try not to get into them because I'll do what I do for this podcast and I'll spend hours researching them. And this, like, I might get stuck on this one.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
I hope you do. I hope you enjoy it.
And I've never heard of it. So while I'm talking, I'm looking for, I actually found I was on Reddit this week, and one of the Ask Reddit feeds was about conspiracy theories. And I read it for a while. I read it on Reddit. I was on that for a long time, and now I'm trying to find it because there were a couple I did want to read to you that I forgot about. And that wasn't mentioned.
So it's wild.
Yeah.
I've only heard of it a couple times. I mean, the research, I was able to get a ton of information, obviously. I will say, if we ever end up in the Denver airport, it might qualify as my favorite airport ever, besides New Zealand, because they do Lord of the Rings. There's an ice skating rink in the airport. And they also have, and this is what makes them win, and maybe the lizard people are superior, they have pet snuggle stations.
What?
Yeah, pet snuggle stations.
Do you have to bring your own pet?
No. They have pets there to help ease your anxiety about travel. People volunteer to bring in their animals, and you can go find one of these designated snuggle stations and love on their animals.
My favorite part of traveling through an airport is the animals.
Yeah.
I am that person that will run into walls because I am watching someone walk their cute puppy.
Yeah. So I knew you would love that.
Can we just stay in the Denver? Like, if we flew there, can they just put us up for a few days?
How are they going to know?
True.
Because it's big. Yeah, we could totally do this.
Such a cheap vacation. We just had to get to Denver. We can go ice skating.
An Auntie Anne's
in one of the underground houses.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get to meet the lizard people.
We'll do some exploring.
Another fun thing is there are actually photos of very strange looking creatures and or aliens in the tunnels. However, it has also been admitted by employees that they put on rubber masks when they know there's going to be news outlets, and they go down there and troll.
I love that. They're like the dark version of Disney.
Yes.
Like, all the Disney workers have to get in character and, like, be very
peppy and character
and on it all the time. And at Denver airport, they're like, hey, how do you feel about screwing with people?
Lizard people? Mm-hmm. So...
Or it's the lizard people telling them.
Yeah, it could be. But, I mean... They've got pet stations. Either that or they're drawing people to eat them, and we would just get eaten. But I'd get to pet a puppy first.
Right. It'd be totally worth it.
So, yeah, that was my foray into the Denver airport.
That is ridiculous.
It's wild.
I know, I feel like every week now I tell you that that's my favorite topic of yours, but that one is crazy to me.
It's intriguing, and it also gives you kind of that ick. Especially the, like, New World Order stuff and that stuff gives me the ick in a big way. I would really like to show the art when this episode is posted, I'd love to show everybody the artwork. I want a picture of Lucifer. I'm going to stay far away from him.
Yeah, I don't want to snuggle him.
No, but I do want to snuggle the pets.
Absolutely.
If they get rid of that, we don't even need to bother.
No. It's a stupid airport.
And we can just go to New Zealand and see Colin coming from the ceiling.
The only reason I ever want to go back to Florida is because the Tampa airport has a giant flamingo in it. It's like 2 stories tall. And I have not seen it yet because the one time I was supposed to fly into Tampa, it was COVID.
Of course. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
I was very excited to tell you guys that.
I'm really stuck on this one.
All I did was text you because, we kind of go through, like, our topics.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure that there's not one that is going to make one of us really uncomfortable or we just don't agree is, like, a good podcast topic. And, I mean, it'd be really weird for us to, like,
the theme of the show.
Yeah. It would be really strange for us to cross topics, but I would not put it past us.
True.
So we kind of talk, and I was like, so I'm going to talk about a haunted airport.
I was like, I'm going to talk about ADHD medication.
And now here we are.
This is how we get all of the listeners, because there's something for everyone.
Something for everyone.
And I had a topic, but now we're done. Now we're just going to talk about
conspiracy theories.
The Denver airport and conspiracy theories.
So, to get to Disney World, can I fly through the Denver airport?
Right. Makes total sense.
Absolutely.
And I need a 3-day layover.
It's fine. It's a business expense.
And I'll just have to meet you there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's for real estate photos.
Yes. Totally works. So, speaking of ADHD,
I'm passing the baton to you.
I guess I've had some kind of serious topics the last couple times, which is different for me. But this one also feels important.
Sorry. I yawn.
Just thinks I'm boring, you guys. Just gonna go. Maybe you need more medication. Something to keep you awake. It is that 3 o'clock slump. I chose medication this week because, specifically ADHD medication. Because we talk a lot about ADHD and we talk about treatment and we talk about all those things, but the more I talk to people about ADHD that are newly diagnosed or whatever, I realize people don't understand how many medications are out there that treat ADHD.
That's true, yeah.
And everybody, even myself included, until I met the psychiatrist I see now, I thought my options were out. When I started struggling with the side effects I was having with my ADHD medications, I went through a couple, and in my brain, that was all I had. I didn't have any other choices. So
that's so discouraging.
It is, because when you're suffering from these side effects, but you need this medication to, like, keep your life together, you have to decide, do I want to feel like crap every day, or do I want to be able to function? And I did that for a while until I met this new psychiatrist, and she's looked at me a number of times and just been like, there are more options. We can keep trying.
We can try this.
And I think that's really important for us to know, especially with ADHD, because it's so hard to advocate for ourselves for so many different reasons. Number one, maybe we don't trust ourselves. We think that we're maybe being dramatic, or we've been told we were dramatic in the past, so we'd rather just suck up and bear it. Or it takes a phone call to make a doctor's appointment, and that's hard to do. And then you have to remember the doctor's appointment and actually go to it, which can be a problem. So we've talked before that I am currently medicated, and I struggled a lot with whether or not I was going to use medication names in this article, and I am. And I'm doing that because I want people to know how many options there are. But I'm not doing that to specifically point anybody towards a specific medication, because especially when you get into these stimulants, every medication hits everybody differently. And you really need to work personally with your provider to figure out what works for you. But you should know that we're not limited to Adderall and Ritalin anymore. Back when I first got diagnosed, the options were limited. They were kind of still handing out Adderall instant release and Ritalin like candy. But these were also the days that doctors were handing out like oxycodone and Xanax and Ambien like candy. So we just had this weird time in the early 2000s, right around like 2010, where apparently we had decided that medication was the end-all be-all. This is how we're going to fix people's lives. And now we're starting, especially, I know we're definitely backing off the oxycodones, the opioids. I know Xanax is not typically prescribed except in really extreme circumstances. Ambien is an incredibly crazy, weird sleep medication that can cause so many issues. I will be very honest that when I first got diagnosed and started on Adderall, it was just like they say it is in college. Like, I understood why the college kids were misusing it. I was working mostly full-time. I was going to school. Zach would come home and find me like painting rooms at 2 a.m. because I just could. I had energy. I lost a bunch of weight because I had no appetite. It was great, or so I thought. And huge disclaimer here, your ADHD medication should not make you feel like that. You know, it's great to have that energy to want to get things done and that like push to stay up late. But if the medication is actually working the way it's supposed to, you're not supposed to want to stay up until 2 a.m. painting. You're supposed to have that ability to go to sleep at night.
You're supposed to function like we're told we're supposed to function.
Yes, like a normal human, not like a superhuman. As I was kind of writing out this timeline for myself, I realized that I started treatment and got diagnosed and medicated like right after my cross-country road trip. And
not a coincidence.
My life has seemed a lot more stable since then. I was medicated sometime, I don't know, 2010, 2012-ish. And then I actually went off my medication shortly after that. And honestly, at the time, I was on a lot of medications for depression, ADHD, anxiety. I quit. I went cold turkey, and I do not recommend that. Do not go cold turkey off your psych meds. It's not a good idea.
Well,
I literally did not function. I had to go to my boss and explain to her what was going on because my brain didn't even know how to brain anymore. It had been so medicated for so long. And I stayed unmedicated for a few years until I was actually doing mortgages and things got really slammed. And mortgages are a lot of numbers and require a lot of detail. So I went back on my medication. Started again with the Adderall, but this time it was the extended release, which was a way better situation than those instant releases that they very, very rarely prescribe anymore. And I did really well on it for a few years. I feel like those were my strong years. I did mortgages. I worked at a legal office. I got my real estate license. I started all of that during those times. And then at some point, I just started to feel awful. And of course, this also coincided during COVID time, so I couldn't talk to anybody about it because every time I called my doctor's office to try to set up an appointment, they would assume it was a COVID symptom and they would send me to the COVID clinic. They would determine I don't have COVID, send me home, and then there was no follow-up.
Nothing was fixed. Yeah.
By the time I finally got into my doctor and tried to explain to him what was going on, I also had a whole bunch of other stuff going on in my life and a really awful health scare with Connor. And that's when I started back on my antidepressants as well. But I remember being at that doctor's visit, and at the time it was just my general practitioner, and just breaking down in tears because I had felt awful for so long now, and my life was just crazy, and I'd had all these issues. I remember him looking at me just like wide-eyed deer in a headlight, and he was like, I'm going to refer you to a psychiatrist. And that was when I realized that my GP probably should not be handling my psych meds. The person I see, she's actually a nurse practitioner psychiatrist, which gives her the ability to prescribe psych meds, even though she's not a full psychiatrist.
Sure.
And I think that made me nervous at first.
Okay,
because
sure.
I had a previous bad experience with somebody who wasn't a doctor but liked to pretend they were. But let me tell you, she has been life-changing. She listens to me, and maybe it's because she's also a woman. We're about the same age. She also has ADHD, but she actually listens to what I say, and she doesn't believe that ADHD is just about focus. So it's not just, oh, well, how's work going? She understands that it's more than that. There's a genetic test you can do now that involves a cheek swab, and it actually helps you determine how well your body reacts to certain medications.
Really?
So it can get, it does, I think it does antidepressants, antipsychotics, and like ADHD medications. And depending on your genes, you might respond really well to this type of medication, but your body might be a slow responder to this medication. That was incredible, being able to, and gave me some answers on why some medications hadn't worked for me in the past, or why some made me feel crazy or awful. Like I said before, she is reminding me and working with me that when I meet with her and I complain about side effects, or I tell her that this isn't working or that isn't working, she's so ready and willing to say, okay, let's try something different. Or, sounds like you need a higher dose or a lower dose. Let's try that for a few weeks and see how you feel on that. She's very accessible when I have questions, or if I want to up a dose or change something. She's just very accessible about all of that. Everyone needs that. I really feel like, especially when you're dealing with psychiatric medications and issues like ADHD or depression, you really need someone who knows what they're doing. But I think with mental health, and especially with ADHD, we just give up.
Oh, yeah.
We say, well, they didn't believe me. They don't think I have ADHD. Or
they said,
well,
everyone in my generation has it.
Yeah.
Or wants to have it.
Yeah.
Or says they have it.
I can't have it because my friends have it. And it's whatever. We don't talk about it. I think obviously we do.
Yeah.
And I try to be pretty open with it at work now. But in the past, I never was. I never told anybody at work I had ADHD.
No, this job, my current job, is the only one I've ever told anybody, and it's because I work with healthcare professionals.
Yeah. I want people to know that they're not alone, that other people struggle. But now I want people to know, because you don't have to stick with Adderall. You don't have to stick with Vyvanse. There are so many options, and I think I'm on my 10th ADHD medication. And I would say probably 6 of them have been within the last year and a half with this particular psychiatrist. On to the nerdy stuff. The actual talk about the medication. Most people are going to start with a non-stimulant. Let's start with, there are kind of 3 categories of ADHD medication that I would break them down into. And I'm not really going to talk about the first one so much, because it's kind of like the homeopathic or over-the-counter options. If you want to try those things that show up in your Facebook feed, go for it. Just please be safe about it. Please be careful. And maybe listen to the rest of what I talk about, so that you know if it's working or not working.
Ask the people around you to monitor you.
Yes.
And to check in with you.
Talk to your doctor, bring the ingredients list in, have them check it, make sure it's safe. The other 2 categories then would be non-stimulant medications and stimulant medications. And of course, keep in mind that you can always choose not to be medicated. Most people start with non-stimulants for a number of reasons, whether it's because they're scared to start with a stimulant, their insurance requires that they try a non-stimulant first, they just don't want to, their doctor always prefers to start with it, and a lot of people have success. There just aren't as many options with non-stimulants as there are stimulants. The 2 big ones I found were Strattera and Quelby which is a newer one, and is approved for kids as young as 6.
Oh, wow.
Doctors will also prescribe like a kind of a stimulant style antidepressant. So the Wellbutrin, bupropion that you mentioned is I have noticed a lot of people start with that. I was actually on Wellbutrin as my antidepressant for a while before I was officially diagnosed.
I think you might have mentioned that last week.
Yes. So, and it probably helped with getting diagnosed with ADHD. And then they actually also found out that some blood pressure pills, such as clonidine and guanfacine, which then they created ADHD medications from, called Temix and Intuniv. They're blood pressure medications, but because they lower blood pressure, they do take away some of the aggressive or impulsive effects of ADHD, which can be really helpful if you have a child that, you know, is maybe mostly hyper, it's the ADHD or whatever, the hyperactivity one. But, I mean, you don't want to be lowering blood pressure on somebody that already has low blood pressure.
Right.
I don't want to say these medications won't be as helpful, but for many, they are just not helpful enough. So then we move into stimulant medications, and there are a ton. Most of them are broken down into, I mean, they're all, you know, when you get into the medical names of these medications, they're all very similar. So you've got amphetamines, you've got methylphenidates, and then they break down into subclasses like dextroamphetamines, dexmethylphenidate, methylphenidate, serdexmethylphenidate. So they all have the amphetamine or the phenidate end to it. So they're all similar, but there are, so just from this webpage, there are 18 different ADHD medications. You also have to remember that within those 18, there are different dosages. They used to have one that you took at night, and it waited to kick in until morning. So people that, or especially children that have trouble getting out of bed in the morning, that was a good option for them. You can kind of pile them on. So you take one dose in the morning, and then you take a half dose in the afternoon if you get that afternoon slump. A lot of most of the options nowadays you're going to find are going to be extended release, so it's something you usually take once in the morning and it lasts all day, because we're trying to get rid of these instant release ones that were very
drugs, basically
easy to misuse. All of these medications tend to come in either a 2-phase or a 3-phase, which is great for adults because it means you're getting a dose when you first take it, and then the medication kind of sits in your body and releases a second dose later in the afternoon. Now, on stimulants, you're going to get some pretty general side effects that most people see, and none of these should surprise you. Tachycardia, dry mouth, racing thoughts, anxiety, appetite suppression, insomnia, upset stomach, nausea, irritability, mood swings, tics, personality changes, mental changes. Obviously, some of those are a lot more severe than other ones. If you've got a little bit of increased heart rate and some dry mouth your first week on your medication, that's probably normal. If you have a little bit of appetite suppression and you might stay up late your first week or so, if those symptoms don't change, if those side effects don't resolve or come down, or they start to really affect your life, if you have some of the bigger side effects like tics, so not like the bug tics, this is not going to make tics find you more delicious. I'm talking about like if you start having like Tourette's style jerky movements, that is a side effect that is pretty uncommon, and you do not want to put up with that. If you notice personality changes or mental changes, or if someone you're close with starts to notice personality changes or mental changes, this is important because we're not always honest with ourselves. If you need to lose some weight and your appetite suppression is working for you, I have no judgment on that. But if you're losing 30 pounds and you're too weak to walk up and down the stairs, you have to watch that. And then the personality changes and the mental changes, my husband had to look right at me and tell me that I was an angrier person on Vyvanse, because I was so excited that I was focusing, and this was early in my journey, that it didn't matter. I was just happy that
especially if you didn't think there were options.
Yeah, if you're stuck on, the big three and you think you've tried them all, you don't notice or you don't think it's so bad, but your spouse or your kid or someone comes to you and says, hey, you seemed a little different the last couple weeks, or let them know that you're changing your medications. Let people know that you're trying something different so they can let you know before it gets to an emergency, because some of these are still psychiatric meds. These can make you suicidal. They can make you have irrational anger. And as we sadly talked about last week, you don't want to take your anger out on your family or have this personality change that affects the people around you when there are other options.
Ask someone you trust and someone who you can speak with freely to help monitor you. Ideally, someone who's with you often, like your spouse or an adult child or parent.
And knows you well. It's not enough to have a psychiatrist that's treating you, because your psychiatrist is seeing you once a month, maybe.
And if you have ADHD, you probably mask when you're talking to your psychologist.
And if you're anything like me, you don't want to talk about yourself. You don't want to make it seem so bad, so you're going to downplay things. You just really need to be honest with the loved ones you have with you to make sure that this is the right path for you.
Especially if it's something you might not notice.
Yes. A lot of the complaints about stimulants, and especially putting children on medications, is people worry about becoming robots. They're not going to, how am I going to be able to feel emotions? And I think the anger one, the Vyvanse for me, was probably because I did want to work. I felt like a robot. I was irritated by distractions and having to be home because I've got shit to do, okay? Or I can't be emotional with you right now because I have to go fold laundry. Like, it put me in this robot mentality that the rest of it didn't matter. I just needed to get this checklist done. So you want to watch for those things, and you want someone else watching for you. And then take that information, maybe keep the mood journal like I mentioned in the last apps or the last episode, or a written journal, something to help you keep track of your actual mood.
Record a memo in your phone.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Something consistently, so you're not just remembering these fleeting thoughts of, well, yeah, this week has seemed good. I got some projects done.
Especially because your mood in that moment, if I'm feeling great today and I think back on my week, I'm probably going to think about the good stuff. Mm-hmm. If I'm feeling like a poo, I'm probably going to think about the crap stuff.
Exactly. So take that information, take how you feel, take your information from your loved ones, and bring all of that to your psychiatrist. And be honest with how you're feeling, and if you think the side effects are worth it or if they're not worth it, and then try something different. The downside is you might have to fight with insurance. You probably have to go to more doctor's appointments. You might have to pay more out of pocket. A lot of these newer medications are not covered by insurance because there are not generics available yet. That might not be feasible.
Stimulants also can affect your heart.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes. So tachycardia or increased heart rate is usually a side effect of stimulants. So if you've had heart problems or if you had high blood pressure, you want to be very careful with those, how you're feeling while you're on them, making sure that your blood pressure isn't getting too high, making sure that your heart rate is staying within normal ranges. So how to know if it's working or if it's too much? Again, you want to watch out for the side effects I've already talked about. The way I always explain it is it makes my brain feel quiet. It makes me feel normal. And it's hard to say, because how do I know what a normal brain feels like?
Normal, yeah.
But so medications that I like to see a decrease in my anxiety. I like to see a decrease in my impulsivity or my racing thoughts or my spending. I like to see me be able to get to work and look at my list and start something up instead of having to give myself 35 to 40 minutes of transition time where I convince myself that I should start working. I can sit down and do one thing at a time versus having 16 tabs open because this spreadsheet got bored, so I jumped and started working on this, and then that got boring, so now I'm finishing this. I like the ones that take away the feeling of overwhelm or overstimulation. Something I know it's working really well if I can get home at the end of the day and still enjoy being around my husband and my son, because I'm not so overstimulated that I feel like I have to lock myself in a room for the rest of the day. I know it's not working or I know that it's not my medication or it's not one for me if any of those side effects are happening,
if you're not eating.
If I'm not eating, if I feel dehydrated all the time, sometimes dehydration actually makes you feel exhausted.
Yeah.
So I would take some stimulants, and instead of feeling like, okay, now I can go do stuff, I would be physically exhausted. I would feel like I need to sleep. If it's something that keeps me up all night, if I can't sleep at a normal time, if I focus too much, if it really forces me into hyper focus,
sure,
those are issues. The way I think of it is your ADHD medication should be kind of like a blood pressure pill, or maybe it is an actual blood pressure pill, but it should be something you need, and there would be consequences without it, but you don't actually feel it working.
Okay, sure.
Most people don't even know their blood pressure is high. Other downfalls, I kind of talked about the medication or the cost a little bit. A lot of the newer ones will give you copay cards, so it knocks the cost down, but you're still looking at $30 to $50 a month. These are also, if you are getting prescribed stimulants, these are considered controlled substances. So you have increased doctor's visits because you have to go to actual doctor's appointments a certain amount of times a year. You can't get refills on these medications, so you have to call in or reach out to your doctor every time you need a refill.
And you better hope that you don't spill some down the sink or drop some on the floor.
Don't lose them. Don't have them stolen out of your purse.
Don't share.
Don't share them.
I mean, selling is what they're really worried about.
Right.
But don't do any of that or you won't get it.
Yes, you cannot get insurance will not give you an extra bottle. The doctor cannot prescribe you an extra bottle. The pharmacy cannot sell you an extra bottle. The pharmacies have to put all of this in a statewide system, so that will flag if you're trying to fill one prescription at multiple pharmacies. If you travel with your medication, you have to keep it in the bottle because it's a controlled substance. So if you are found with Adderall in your pocket and it's not in a bottle that shows that it's prescribed to you, you can get arrested for having a controlled substance.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't think about that.
But if you bring your whole bottle on a 3-day vacation and you lose it, you're screwed.
Or if somebody sees it and says, ooh, Adderall, I can get $20 a piece for those. Mm-hmm. I don't know the going total for Adderall. $20 is my guess.
Yeah, I'm good with that. And according to state law or federal law, I don't even know anymore, your doctor also has to drug test you most of the time. And there are a number of reasons for that. They're first making sure that you are actually taking it and not selling it for $20 a pop. They are making sure you're taking the right dose of it. So you're not taking one and giving one to your mom or whoever. You have to sign a contract, or at least I did, that says you will not use illicit drugs while you are on this controlled substance. So in Michigan now, marijuana is legal, but it's not federally legal. So there are doctors in Michigan that will not prescribe ADHD medication to you if you test positive for marijuana. They can't prescribe it to you if you test positive for cocaine. So don't do cocaine.
Don't do coke.
But especially don't do coke and Adderall because your heart might explode. Yeah, you have to call in every time. So that's something ADHD people are awful at.
Do it while you're on your medicine.
Right. If you run out early, you might be, if you run out, you shouldn't run out early. But if you do, you probably can't get any extra. And it can cause problems with your job there are a lot of jobs that require a pre-employment drug test, and so your drug test might show amphetamines, and then you may have to disclose to your employer that even though you didn't want to, you may have to disclose that you have ADHD and you have a reason to be on these medications. There has also been a nationwide, maybe worldwide, shortage on stimulants right now. Adderall is almost impossible to find. Vyvanse is becoming a problem. My friend is on Concerta, which is kind of like a in between a non-stimulant and a stimulant. It's a very, very low stimulant. She hasn't been able to find it in months. And these shortages happen suddenly. And the crazy thing is, so part of the there are a couple reasons for the shortage. Part of it is because during COVID, telehealth started to be a thing, and they relaxed the regulations in places like these online ones that would prescribe medication that even though they had never met you in person. So all of a sudden we saw an influx of people that were being prescribed ADHD medications, and then because they are federally regulated and they are a controlled substance, the federal government tells these pharmaceutical companies how much they can produce of these medications. So not only are there more people taking these medications, but now there are less of the medication available because the feds are cutting down on it the same way they're cutting down on opioid use and Norco prescriptions and all of those things. They're doing the same thing to to ADHD prescriptions. The problem is, it's not the pharmacy. You're right. It's not the pharmacy's fault. But if this medication is something that, if you were diabetic and you ran out of your insulin, somebody would be doing everything they could to get you your insulin.
But ADHD doesn't necessarily make you die.
Or your doctor would call and switch you to a different type really quickly, or they'd find a fix for you. If your ADHD medication isn't available, most of the time they're just like, sorry, try back next week. Or
we could maybe try a different one.
Yeah. Well, no, because then you have to make another doctor's appointment. You have to go in and see them.
Yeah.
You have to have a full appointment to get a different medication. And that's even if the doctor will agree to change your medication. And then you have to deal with the pharmacy that you just had a prescription for Concerta that you tried to fill, and now you're trying to fill a prescription for Adderall.
And now you look a little sus.
Yeah, or, the pharmacist says, well, we don't have any, but I heard Rite Aid over on Apple has some. So now it's your job to call 13 different pharmacies in your city to see if you could find one that might have your medication, your dose, and
on
the number
day
of pills that you need available and ready. For people that have trouble with executive functioning, and for people that have
time
trouble
management
with time management and memory and moving forward with these types of things, it's almost impossible. It's just hoop after hoop that you have to jump through, and if you don't, you end up cold turkey on a psych medication that most psychiatrists would probably tell you kind of need to titrate off of. So, all of that to say, medication, well, ADHD in general is a very personal journey. Everybody's journey is different, and then when you start getting into whether to treat or whether to medicate, it becomes even harder. And you really need to build yourself a team to help. And I'm not saying you have to go out and get a team of specialists to figure your brain out, but you have to have a team of a general practitioner, a psychiatrist, hopefully a life partner or somebody that you spend a lot of time with that can help you. As well as, maybe somebody at work on top of all that
and even being open and honest with teen children.
And take all this and find healthcare providers that you can trust. Healthcare providers that aren't going to dismiss your concerns and who will sit with you and find these different medications and work on these side effects and really put you in a spot that you feel empowered to advocate for yourself and to find the right choice for you. Because nobody on any podcast or anywhere can tell you what's going to work for you. And no one has a crystal ball to see, even with genetic testing, we can't tell you exactly how your brain's going to react on these because it's really not just your brain.
And weigh the risks too, actually.
Yes.
Because your brain can freak you out. Mm-hmm. Our brains betray us sometimes.
Yeah.
Also, these health risks.
So, yeah. Medication.
I like it's so informative, and it's very pertinent to me because I've just started my own journey.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going on an adventure.
Did you have second breakfast first? What about 11?
I actually did have second breakfast today. So
that was Dungeons and Dopamine podcast, week 19?
19.
Did we even say that in the beginning?
I don't think so.
Look at us.
It was week 19.
Mm-hmm.
In case you were wondering. You can listen to us anywhere that you stream podcasts. Also on YouTube.
You can look for us on Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit. Pretty much any social media that Jessica is aware of.
Except Threads, I think it's called.
Oh, yeah, there is a new one.
It's just because it's not very exciting. I can't do anything fun on it. So once they make it fun, I'll be there too. And I'm not hip to the new lingo, so there's probably something I'm missing.
Probably.
Oh, and we don't do Snapchat.
Yeah, because...
That would be weird.
We're not teenage children.
No. But anyway, you can get a hold of us on any of those social medias. Also, at dungeonsdopamine@yahoo.com.
And Dungeons and Dopamine is edited and published by Argyle Pigeon Productions.
That's it. We're done.
Forever.
Forever.
Just kidding. We'll see you next week.
Thanks. Bye.
Love you. Bye.